The sky was the color of cooling blood when the comet came. Sister Agatha had been pressing her hands to a guardsman's chest, whispering the litany for breath and pulse, when the heavens tore open. The shriek of re-entry drowned the artillery, drew every eye on the shattered boulevard to a line of impossible blue arcing down between the cathedral spires. The comet hit with a sound like an organ collapsing. A round wave of pressure folded the smoke back on itself, turned demon flesh to drifting ash, rang the bones of the city like a bell. For a heartbeat the battlefield was clean, as if someone had opened a window onto winter air. Agatha staggered, one arm over the wounded man. Beside her, a squad of battered conscripts forgot to be afraid and simply stared at the crater glowing like a wound. The last Vox prayers were a jitter of static over the ruined shrine world, but the silence that followed felt like belief. He stood at the center of the impact, steam rising from his clothes, yellow hair in wild spikes, eyes bright with the kind of light this place didn't remember. A young man, too human, too alive, looking around as if he'd woken in the wrong dream. Emperor, breathed one of the troopers. A saint. Agatha's instinct said otherwise. Saints didn't blink grit out of their eyes and wince like someone who'd taken a punch. Saints didn't stand with knees slightly bent, weight forward, ready to move the second danger arrived. He looked like a runner waiting for a signal. The signal came as a ripple in the air. The street groaned under fresh weight. The heat haze bent and sharpened into horn silhouettes threading out of the smoke, claws dragging and blades like bits of night. Demons, drawn by brightness the way flies find a flame. The young man didn't look away from them. He raised one hand and traced something in the ash at his feet, a quick and careful motion. Symbols bloomed, lines of blue fire looping into a kanji Agatha didn't know. The first demon lunged. He caught it with a backhand, palm flaring. The creature came apart in a stuttering spray, dissolving into sparks that hit the street and went out. He looked almost apologetic about it, as if he'd swatted a wasp that didn't know any better. Boots crunched across grit. Inquisitor Lucerne Vale stepped to Agatha's side, coat scorched at the hem, rosette heavy on her chest. She took in the crater, the symbols burning, the boy who couldn't be a boy. Identify, Vale said, the word flat as a blade. Her bolt pistol found its home in the line of his heart. Psyker classification and origin. He turned, saw the gun, saw the woman and the wounded, and somehow smiled. Hi, he said as though they'd met at a market. Name's Naruto. Ninja. The smile tilted. Not sure that helps. Risa Delta, the Muggos explorator crouched behind a broken cherub plinth with mechadendrites trembling, diverted an optic. Energy emissions anomalous, she murmured, voice clicking through a grate of Vox static. No warp signature. Harmonics, pleasing. Pleasing, Vale repeated without inflection, and tightened her aim. Mutant, Xenos, or miracle. Choose fast. Another demon tripped out of the smoke, this one dragging two bodies on a chain of bone. Naruto's expression changed the way a candle changes when someone shields it from wind. The flame didn't grow, it steadied. He stepped past the point of Vale's pistol, crouched to the guardsman under Agatha's hands. You bind everyone you meet? He asked Vale without looking up. Everything that can break a planet, Vale said. Move and I ventilate your skull. He put his palm to the guardsman's wound. Blue gathered there as water gathers in a cup, then seeped out through his fingers. Stitched flesh under Agatha's hands warmed. Torn skin drew together as if embarrassed to be open. The soldier gasped, sucked air, eyes fluttering to focus. Agatha's throat made a sound she hadn't heard from herself in a long time. What is that? Chakra, Naruto said. Mine to give. He wobbled a little after, like a runner after the finish. The pistol didn't waver. Sirens burned the air. Down the avenue, black shapes peeled off the cathedral's broken facade and started down the steps in a parody of processional. More demons, dozen by dozen, attracted to the rupture like sharks to blood. One of the conscripts screamed and fired until his mag was empty, the shells bouncing around his boots like beads. Vale's decision was a click. The restraints in her belt snapped open and hit Naruto's wrists. Prove you are not our doom, she said, and flicked the release. The cuffs fell away. Defend the transept breach. Sister, fall back with the wounded. Mugos on me. Naruto stood and rolled his shoulders. I'll cover you, he said, and because this world did not know what he meant, he made it visible. He clapped his hands, fingers blurring. Blue smears stepped out of him and became men. No, not men, him, 10, 20, 30, arranging themselves with practiced errorless economy. One clone took the guardsman from Agatha's arms with gentle surety and loped away toward cover. Another stooped for a dropped magazine and pressed it into a shaking trooper's hands as naturally as a friend. The original glanced at Vale's pistol one last time, winked and leapt. The street became choreography. Bolter fire thumped a heartbeat. The demons hit the line and sprayed apart in bursts of light and meat. Those that slipped through met a wall of blue-vested figures that moved like water around stone, turning kills into gentle falls when they could, into necessary endings when they couldn't. Rise's mechadendrites wrote spinning characters in the air, trying to read a music that had never been scored. A larger thing pushed through the press, horned and plated, oil-black, twin axes dripping dream stuff. It roared in a voice that made Agatha's bones sing with nausea and charged a makeshift barricade of pews and shattered icon stands. Naruto landed on the altar rail, reached into himself, and brought out a sphere of turning force that hummed in sympathy with the ruined organs. He dropped from the rail, met the charge with the sphere, and pressed it into the demon's chest. It folded around the point of light, imploding with a clean sound like glass rescued from shattering. Name, barked a new voice through helmet speakers. Brother Sergeant Caiestus, armor scoured and burning, moved into the gap with 3 of his space marines. The eyes of his helm glowed like coals. He threw a glance at Naruto as if calculating the weight he could carry. Auxiliary. Identify. Uzumaki, Naruto said, panting a little. Naruto. He pointed with his chin. More on the left. Caiestus didn't nod, but he shifted. The Marines anchored the line, Naruto's clones, dozens now, wove in the spaces like thread through mail. Agatha, pressed against a pillar with the wounded around her, counted breaths. Vale fired, moved, fired, her expression a still pond with a storm under it. The cathedral's front doors gaped like a broken mouth. Somewhere deep inside, bells rang at random, as if the machine spirits were trying to remind themselves how prayer worked. The demons didn't stop. They rarely did. They lost shape as they got closer. Desire melting into fury, melting into hunger. Naruto kept moving, kept choosing, kept turning killing blows into pushes and pushes into warnings. When that failed, he became as ruthless as the universe he'd fallen into. He found a rhythm he could teach himself to live with and rode it until the last wave broke and the street made that small empty noise battles make when they remember how to be streets again. Smoke sank. Bodies stayed. The wind coming down the avenue was hot, but it moved. Agatha knelt with a basin of disinfectant that smelled like memory, cleaning the blood from her hands with careful fury. Vale holstered her pistol and walked into the crater's edge. Naruto stood there with his hands on his hips, looking at the sky as if it might offer a map if he stared long enough. Up close, Agatha saw the tired in him, the way his smile was built over worry like a bridge over a chasm. Whatever you are, Vale said, you are not a common breed of problem. Her eyes flicked to his hands. I prefer problems I know how to shoot. He scratched his cheek. You're welcome, he said, then caught himself. Sorry. Where I'm from we do the thank you later thing. Where you're from, Vale repeated. His face closed for a breath, the light dimming as if a cloud had crossed some inner sun. Far, he said. And I can't get back. Not yet. Risa arrived, lenses irising. Analysis ongoing, she said, to no one and everyone. He is an engine running on a fuel unknown to the cult mechanicus. Machine spirits are curious. Agatha found the steadiness her order had put between panic and prayer and stood. He saved them, she said, nodding toward the line of wounded who were breathing, blinking, surprised to still belong to their bodies. Whatever else he saved them. You often collect stray miracles, sister? Vale asked lightly, but Agatha heard the gravel under the ice. Only when they crash into the street, Agatha said, and ask to help. Naruto grinned, and something in the square unwound by a notch. I am asking, he said, And I'm not a psyker. I don't taste like the monsters. His gaze flicked to the demon's evaporating remains. I can feel them. But what I use is different. Vale considered. Decisions stacked behind her eyes like cards. You will submit to examination, she said at last. You will not touch a weapon without my authorization. You will not attempt to flee. Do these things and I will consider your assistance. Deal, Naruto said. But if more monsters jump out of a hole, I'm helping. That will be a problem when we are safely aboard my ship, Vale said. Until then it will be a problem that happens to be useful. A sound like tearing fabric opened over the cathedral. The wind that arrived wasn't wind. It was hunger with a direction. The stones under their feet hummed. Between the broken spires, the air pinched, darkened, brightened again with a sickly sheen. A seam of nothingness peeled wide and the first of the next wave fell through. Vale raised her pistol without looking away from Naruto. We are not safely aboard my ship. Caiestus turned his helm toward the new wound in the sky. Contact, he said, as if the word were a ritual that could steady gravity. He signaled his marines, and they moved like doors closing. Naruto's hand went out, found the scuffed hilt of a gladius Vale had tossed near his feet as if by accident. He weighed it, nodded, and slid it into his belt like a promise. Stick close, Vale said, and it was almost gentle. Do not die without my permission. Won't die at all, Naruto said, and his grin had teeth. He clapped his hands again. The street filled with blue-sleeve shadows who looked like him, breathed like him, and bowed to no darkness. They stepped together toward the cathedral's yawning nave, where stained glass lay like fallen constellations and the next winter was already walking down the aisle. Agatha lifted the last wounded man and whispered to him that they were not alone, that someone had fallen out of the sky to stand in the place where shields should be. The bells started ringing again, and underneath the metal, Agatha thought she heard something older, a boy's voice saying something impossible and true. Believe it. The stars outside the viewport looked dead. Each one was a pinprick of cold light, stretched by the cruiser's motion through the void. The hum of the warp engines carried like a heartbeat through metal, steady and unsettling. Naruto sat cross-legged on the deck of his assigned cell, though they called it quarters. It had a door that locked from the outside and stared through the armored glass at eternity. He hadn't slept. The battle on the surface still played behind his eyes. The screaming, the smoke, the creatures that weren't quite alive. They reminded him of chakra gone wrong, of the way power could twist if it forgot the heart that wielded it. Back home, when things went bad, there was always someone to pull him back. A friend, a rival, a village. Here, there was only silence and suspicion. The door opened with a hiss. Inquisitor Vale entered, coat immaculate despite the soot still shadowing her face. A servo-skull floated at her shoulder, its eye flickering red. She studied him like a puzzle she wasn't sure should exist. You haven't eaten, she said. Food's weird here, Naruto replied. Tastes like metal and regret. That's recycled protein and fear of starvation, Vale said dryly. Get used to both. He smirked, but it faded quickly. So, what happens now? You going to poke me with more machines? You're not under torture, she said. You're under observation. If you were under torture, you'd know. Ryza Delta entered behind her, mechadendrites clicking as they unfolded small devices that hummed and blinked. The specimen remains energetically stable, the Muggos reported. Flux output suggests an energy source rooted in internal biological lattices rather than the immaterium. Elegant. Inefficient, but elegant. I'm sitting right here, Naruto muttered. Good, Ryza said without irony. I would prefer the sample remain ambulatory. Vale ignored the exchange. I need to know what you are. Naruto Uzumaki. You say chakra. I have psychers who bleed light from their eyes when the warp touches them. You don't bleed. The demons came for you. Explain that. He drew a slow breath, trying to find words that fit this world's language. Back home, chakra is life. It's energy from within, from training and will. It connects everyone. You can use it to fight, to heal, to make illusions or power machines. It's not a god, not a curse. It's ours. Vale folded her arms. And what of the nine-tailed demon you carry? Naruto's gaze flicked up sharply. How do you? I read energy signatures. There's something inside you. Old. Predatory. He looked down at his hands, remembering the warmth that had always been half his, half another's. He's gone, he said softly. But I still feel his echo. Kurama was my friend. He taught me what strength means. For a moment, something flickered behind Vale's eyes, something that wasn't suspicion. Then it was gone. Friendship with a demon, she said. This galaxy would eat you alive. Then I'll make it choke, Naruto replied. The servo-skull word. Vale exhaled, half amusement, half fatigue. You saved soldiers on Lathril. Sister Agatha speaks for you. Sergeant Caiestus calls you a useful weapon. Ryza wants to dissect you in the name of understanding. I need to decide whether you're a threat or a miracle. Maybe both, he said, smiling faintly. Vale didn't smile back. You'll accompany us to Pallidus 9. A forge moon gone dark centuries ago. Chaos activity is rising there. If you truly can fight these things without drawing on the warp, you'll be tested. He rose, dusting imaginary dirt from his clothes. You could have just asked. I don't like cages. Then don't give me a reason to lock you in one, she said, and turned on her heel. The journey through the warp was like sailing inside a nightmare. Outside the ship's blessed Geller field, tides of unreality pressed against reality's skin, whispering with voices that could almost be heard. Naruto wandered the corridors to keep from thinking too much, nodding to silent crewmen who moved like ghosts, their eyes hollow with faith and exhaustion. He found the training deck by accident, a cavern of steel where space marines drilled under dim lights. When he stepped inside, Sergeant Caiestus was teaching new recruits the discipline of bolter fire, movement, control, the rhythm of killing efficiently. The Marines turned as Naruto entered. Some sneered, others simply watched. Caiestus's voice boomed through his helmet. The Inquisitor's pet, he said. Here to observe. Maybe learn something, Naruto said. You guys shoot like you mean it. Caiestus handed him a training blade, its weight solid and cold. Show me what you can do. Naruto grinned. You asked for it. The spar began as a test and became a lesson. Caiestus moved with impossible precision, a wall of ceramite and discipline. Naruto slipped between strikes like wind through reeds, feet whispering against the deck. Each clash rang like thunder, and clones burst into being, circling, distracting, laughing. Marines tried to follow but couldn't tell which was real until the last second. When the spar ended, Caiestus's armor bore faint scorch marks where blue energy had grazed him. Naruto stood with one hand on his knee, breathing hard but smiling. Not bad for a guy in a tank, he said. Caiestus chuckled once, a short, dry sound. You fight with heart. Heart gets you killed. Maybe. But it also keeps you alive. Later, in the mess hall, Sister Agatha found him sitting alone with untouched food. She sat across from him, folding her hands around a tin cup of recycled tea. You look like someone carrying ghosts, she said. Maybe I am. On Lathril, I saw you heal without hesitation. Why? He thought for a moment. Because if I can save someone, I do. That's the rule. Here, she said quietly. Saving is rarer than killing. Remember that before it breaks you. The ship trembled then, a deep shudder that rattled cups and hearts alike. The warning klaxons began their mechanical chant. Vale's voice echoed through the vox. All personnel to battle stations. Warp incursion detected. Naruto was already running before Agatha finished crossing herself. The corridors lit red as he burst onto the bridge, where Vale stood before the observation window. Beyond the glass, something immense moved inside the warp, shapes like wings made of screams reaching for the ship. They found us, Vale said. Demons. Yes. Drawn to you, most likely. Naruto clenched his fists. Then I'll fix it. The floor vibrated as the ship's cannons fired, energy lances cutting across unreality. One of the shapes tore free of the void and smashed against the Geller field. The air shimmered with heat and pain. Crewmen screamed as their minds brushed against something vast. Naruto reached inward, into the calm core he'd built through years of war and loss. Chakra gathered around him like sunlight. Vale turned. "What are you doing?" "Helping." He pressed his palms together. The hum of the engines wavered as blue light spread across the walls, wrapping the bridge in a gentle glow. The distortions recoiled. The shrieking faded. When it was over, only silence and the whisper of cooling metal remained. The crew stared. Vale's jaw tightened, eyes wide before she masked it again. "You interfered with a Geller field. That should be impossible." "I just filled in the cracks," Naruto said, rubbing the back of his neck. "You had leaks." For the first time, Vale looked uncertain. "Perhaps the Emperor sent you," she murmured. "Or maybe he's testing you," Naruto said with a faint grin. "Either way, we're still flying." She almost smiled. "Almost. We arrive at Pallidus 9 in 2 cycles," she said. "Rest while you can." As she left the bridge, Naruto returned his gaze to the viewport. The stars looked alive again, faint points of hope glittering in the black. For the first time since falling into this cold universe, he allowed himself a small thought, that maybe, just maybe, he could make a difference here too. Behind him, unseen in the reflection of the glass, a ripple of shadow moved across the stars, whispering his name with a voice that was not Kurama's but something older, hungrier, waiting. The forge moon rose before them like a dying ember. Even from orbit, Pallidus 9 looked wrong. Its surface veined with rivers of molten metal. Entire continents cracked open to reveal the bones of the planet. The ship drifted into high anchor, the mechanical choir of the Mechanicus chanting binary hymns through the Vox as if prayer could keep the machine spirits from screaming. Naruto leaned against the viewport, eyes reflecting the fiery landscape below. "You really live on worlds like that?" he asked softly. Risa Delto's Voxbox crackled beside him. "Lived," she corrected. "Once, Pallidus 9 birthed the engines of crusades. Now it serves silence." Behind them, Vale's boots rang against the deck as she entered. Her voice carried that same clipped control, the kind that came from habit instead of calm. "The cult of Verakesh has made this moon their shrine. They're raising something, a ritual anchored in the old Manufactoria. If they succeed, the warp will spill into real space from here to the Segmentum Pacificus." Naruto turned, his usual grin absent. "Then we stop them." Vale's expression didn't change. "If you are what you claim, you might help us do that. If not, you will at least die trying." They descended in the storm-scarred gunship St. Drusus Mercy. The atmosphere burned them in, clouds the color of rust shearing past as lightning crawled across the hull. Inside, Marines checked bolters with ritual precision. Agatha tightened her harness, eyes closed in prayer. Naruto sat near the rear hatch, fingers drumming against his knees, watching the glow leak through the seams of the landing ramp. Caiestus leaned close enough for his vox to be heard. "When we land, stay within the perimeter. We hold the outer ring while the Inquisitor secures intel. You break formation, I will not chase you." Naruto looked up and smiled faintly. "You'll be too slow anyway." The Marine made a sound that might have been laughter or a growl. It was hard to tell through the helm. The ramp dropped with a hiss and the heat rolled in. The air was metallic, alive with the stink of old oil and ozone. They came down on what had once been a loading bay. Skeletal cranes towering above, chains swinging lazily in the wind. The sky was a bruised orange, ash drifting like snow. "Emperor's light," Agatha whispered. "Keep that to yourself," Vale said. "He doesn't visit this place anymore." They moved as a unit through the ruins, their shadows long against the molten horizon. Naruto could feel it, the wrongness in the ground. It wasn't just decay, it was hunger. Every step echoed like a pulse. The energy of the world wasn't chakra, wasn't even life. It was something old, angry, waiting. When they reached the mouth of the Manufactorum, Rise's mechadendrites twitched as if sniffing the air. "Residual warp saturation at 40%, she said. "The taint is old, but organized." Vale nodded once. "Begin the survey. Caiestus, establish a defensive line." Naruto crouched beside a shattered servo unit, its lenses long gone. He placed his hand on the metal and let his energy seep in. The machine shivered faintly, a spark of light passing along its surface before dying. He could feel what had happened here. Years of silence, broken by sudden screams, then stillness again. "This place remembers," he murmured. Agatha glanced at him. "Machines have memories?" "Everything does," Naruto said. "You just have to listen right." Hours bled together as they dug deeper into the factory's heart. They passed through vast halls where statues of saints lay toppled, their faces eroded into mockeries. Piles of rusted servitors lay tangled like corpses in trenches. The only sound was the whisper of their footsteps and the distant hiss of magma. Eventually they found what Vale had been looking for, a data shrine still pulsing with dim light. Ryza interfaced her cables, her mechadendrites dancing in precise rhythm. Screens flickered to life, showing sigils Naruto didn't recognize. "It's coordinates," Ryza said slowly. "Verakesh is gathering relics from multiple sectors. He means to fuse them through a single conduit." Vale's gaze slid to Naruto. "You." Naruto frowned. "How can he even know I'm here?" "The warp speaks faster than light," Vale said. "Your arrival tore through realities. Someone like Verakesh would have felt the ripple the way sharks smell blood." A low tremor shook the floor. Marines turned, bolters rising. Somewhere in the dark, metal scraped against metal. A distorted voice echoed through the hall, half mechanical, half human. "Found you." The first cultist stepped into the light, robes of flayed skin, a mask of rusted steel, eyes burning with warp fire. Behind him, dozens more slithered from the shadows, their bodies twisted by corruption. "Contact front," Caiestus barked, and the world exploded into noise. Bolters thundered, their recoil echoing like drums of war. Naruto dashed forward, clones flaring into existence around him. Blue light met red flame as chakra struck warp corruption. Each strike left trails of energy that hummed against the walls. He could feel the hatred in the air, thick and poisonous, trying to crawl inside his mind. "Stay focused," Vale shouted, her inferno pistol roaring. "They're trying to break formation." A cultist leapt at Naruto, claws dripping liquid shadow. He spun, drove his palm forward, and a sphere of wind blasted the creature apart. But for everyone he felled, two more rose, their bodies melting into shapes that shouldn't exist. The temperature dropped suddenly, breath frosting in his lungs. From the far end of the hall, a new voice spoke, a calm, resonant whisper that carried over the chaos. "You are the vessel," it said. "The fox's heart in human flesh." Naruto froze. The cultists parted as a tall figure stepped through them, draped in tattered blue robes. His face was hidden by a mask of bone etched with runes that pulsed like veins. "I am Verakesh," the figure said. "And you, stranger, are the key." Vale fired. The shot hit nothing. The image flickered like smoke. "A projection," Ryza hissed. "He's in the data streams." Verakesh's image smiled. "Do not struggle, little light. The warp has already tasted you. It wants what burns inside." Naruto clenched his fists. "You'll get nothing from me." "Nothing. You misunderstand. You are a door. You will open." The projection dissolved, leaving the air heavy with his echo. The cultists collapsed, their bodies burning away in sudden silence. Only the smell of iron remained. Vale turned to Naruto, eyes sharp. "He knows what you carry. We can't stay here." "He won't stop," Naruto said quietly. "Neither will we." Vale's tone left no room for argument. "We regroup at the command post. Then we hunt him before he finishes whatever he's building." They emerged from the factory into the rust-colored twilight. The sky pulsed faintly, clouds twisting in unnatural spirals. Naruto felt a pang deep in his chest, a faint heartbeat that wasn't his own. Kurama's echo, warning him, or maybe just remembering what it meant to fight gods. That night, as the camp settled, Naruto sat on a crate outside the perimeter lights, watching the heat shimmer on the horizon. Agatha joined him, her armor smudged, her expression weary. You look like someone who's seen too much, she said. He gave a tired laugh. Feels like that's all I ever see. Then maybe you were meant for this place. We all see too much here. He looked at her. You still believe in the Emperor? Even after all this? Belief isn't about seeing, she said softly. It's about refusing to stop. Her words lingered as he turned his gaze back to the dark. Somewhere far below, Varakesh prepared his ritual, feeding on faith twisted into despair. The air tasted like storm. Naruto closed his eyes, drew in a long breath, and let his chakra flow until the cold began to fade. He didn't know what would come next, but he knew this. Whatever monster the warp sent, whatever gods demanded, he would meet them head-on. The wind carried a faint whisper from the distance, a voice that wasn't quite human, low and familiar. You can't run from destiny, Naruto. He smiled into the dark. I never do. The storm came before dawn, if there could be such a thing on a world that hadn't seen sunlight in centuries. Lightning crawled across the forge moon's sky like cracks in old glass, illuminating towers of black iron and endless rivers of molten slag. Every thunderclap carried a whisper, the warp breathing against reality, testing the walls that still held it back. The St. Drusus Mercy had withdrawn to low orbit, leaving the strike team alone among the ghosts of Pallidus 9. Naruto woke to the sound of wind howling through the metal canyons. His tent walls flickered with dull orange light from the nearby lava vents. For a moment, he thought of campfires back home, of voices that no longer existed here. Then the memory slipped away like smoke. He rose, fastening the rough flak vest Vale's men had given him, and stepped outside into the ash-laden air. The encampment huddled beneath a half-collapsed manufactorum, its towers leaning like drunk giants. Servo lamps buzzed in the gloom, throwing long shadows over the rows of makeshift barricades. Marines moved in silence, their armor stained with soot. Sister Agatha stood beside a row of wounded guardsmen, whispering prayers as her hands moved over broken bodies. Her voice was calm, tired, beautiful. At the far edge of camp, Mugos Ryza worked beside a cluster of humming generators. Blue light pulsed between them in slow, rhythmic beats, the beginnings of the Chakra Mechanica seal array. Cables ran like veins across the ground, connecting to pylons carved with Naruto's glowing symbols. He joined her, crouching near the center circle where his marks were half-finished. Your technique defies logic, Ryza said without looking up, her mechanical fingers painting sigils in midair. Yet logic bends to results. It's just balance, Naruto replied. Your runes are like machine spirit prayers. My seals are chakra patterns. Together, maybe we make something that listens to both. Ryza paused, lenses whirring. And what will it hear? Hope, he said, smiling faintly. Even machines deserve that. A shadow fell across them. Vale stood at the perimeter, her cloak snapping in the wind. Report. Ryza's vox clicked. Array construction at 73%. Energy harmonization stable. Expected activation within 6 hours. Good, Vale said. Caestus will sweep the southern trenches before dusk. The cultists will strike soon. The ritual's interference grows stronger by the hour. Naruto studied her face. Grim as always, but something had changed. The lines around her eyes were deeper, not from age but from too many decisions. You still don't trust me, he said quietly. I don't trust anyone, she answered. But I've learned to use what I have. He shrugged. That's fine. You don't have to trust me. Just don't lose faith in yourself. Her eyes met his for a second, sharp, unreadable, and then she walked away. The day passed in uneasy rhythm. Naruto helped carve new chakra seals, shaping them into patterns that hummed with both life and machine energy. The Marines patrolled the ruins, their boots thudding in measured cadence. The air grew heavier, thick with static and the metallic taste of rain that would never fall. Every now and then, Naruto felt a pulse deep in the ground, like the heartbeat of something ancient beneath the surface. By dusk, the array stood complete, a vast circle of glowing lines etched into the ferrocrete, humming with energy. Vale stood at its edge, Ryza and Agatha beside her, Caestus and his marines forming a perimeter. The wind howled across the plain, carrying whispers in languages no one spoke anymore. Naruto knelt in the center of the circle, palms pressed together. His chakra flared, a golden light against the crimson haze. The ground vibrated as the seal awakened, light crawling up the pylons in waves. Energy levels rising, Ryza said. Unstable harmonics detected. It's fine, Naruto murmured. She's just waking up. The golden aura expanded outward, meeting the mechanical symbols and merging into a single pattern of light. Half chakra, half machine cant. For a breathless moment, the air itself seemed to brighten. The ash clouds parted, and a ray of pure sunlight pierced the sky, touching the ground for the first time in centuries. Everyone froze. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then the world screamed. The light flickered. The seal lines twisted, their geometry warping into shapes that hurt to look at. Energy surged backward through the pylons, shattering the outer ring. Marines staggered as the ground convulsed. Ryza shouted something in binary, her voice rising over the storm. Something's feeding on the array, she cried. Vale drew her pistol, scanning the shadows. Varakesh. He's turning it against us. Naruto struggled to keep the seal stable, his hands shaking. I can stop it, just give me. The ground split open. Blue light erupted into crimson flame as tendrils of warp energy burst through the cracks. Shapes crawled out, demons with molten flesh and burning eyes, their screams blending with the wailing storm. Caiestus roared a battle hymn and charged, bolter fire tearing through the first wave. Marines fell into formation, their discipline unshaken. Vale moved beside them, her inferno pistol spitting fire that burned hotter than the warp itself. Naruto, she shouted over the chaos. Shut it down. He closed his eyes, diving deep into himself, trying to find the rhythm beneath the madness. The seal still sang, but the melody was wrong, corrupted, as if someone else were playing through him. Then he heard it. A voice, soft but unmistakable. Kit, you've really done it this time. His breath caught. Kurama. A low, rumbling chuckle echoed inside his mind. Only a piece of me. An echo. You tore open something too loud even for the fox to sleep through. Help me fix it. Naruto pleaded. I can't. You're the anchor now. You opened the door, now close it. He forced his chakra outward, pushing against the corruption. The golden light flared again, driving the demons back, but Varakesh's laughter rolled through the storm, cold and triumphant. You've done well, vessel. The voice boomed from nowhere and everywhere. Your seal connects the worlds. Your power fuels the bridge. You cannot stop it now. A column of black fire erupted from the center of the array, engulfing Naruto. The air bent, the world twisting around him. He screamed as the echo of the Nine Tails was ripped from his soul, torn free like light from a dying star. The golden aura shattered, replaced by sickly red. The array collapsed. Naruto. Agatha cried, rushing forward, but Vale pulled her back as the heat surged. Caiestus waded into the smoke, dragging Marines out of the collapsing ring. When the light faded, Naruto lay motionless in the center, the ground around him scorched to glass. His body trembled, steam rising from his skin. The warmth that had always surrounded him was gone, replaced by a hollow cold that crawled through his veins. Vale approached cautiously. He's still breathing, she said. Ryza knelt beside him, scanners flickering. Chakra field, depleted. Something else occupies the void. The echo of the beast is gone. Naruto's eyes fluttered open, pale and unfocused. He took it, he whispered. Varakesh took Kurama's heart. Vale's expression hardened. Then we take it back. He tried to rise, but his strength failed. You don't understand. Without him, I'm alive, she interrupted. And that's more than most. She turned to her Marines. Evacuate the wounded. We regroup and plan the counterstrike. They withdrew into the ruins as night fell, the forge moon groaning under the weight of what had been unleashed. High above, lightning forked across the sky, tracing the shape of a great sigil that pulsed in rhythm with Naruto's fading heartbeat. Inside the crumbling manufactorum, the survivors made camp again. The wounded whispered prayers while machines muttered binary hymns to no one. Naruto sat apart from the others, staring at the distant lights of the dying seal. His hands trembled. He couldn't feel the warmth that had always answered his call. The silence inside him was unbearable. Agatha approached quietly, wrapping a worn cloak around his shoulders. "Rest," she said. "The fight isn't over." He didn't look up. "It's just beginning." Outside, the wind shifted. The sigil in the sky flared once more, and far away in the depths of the manufactorum, Varakesh opened his arms to the storm, the stolen echo burning behind his eyes like a new sun. The wind on Pallidus 9 no longer sounded like wind. It whispered in languages made of static, carrying fragments of screams from the warp tier high above. Every breath tasted like dust and iron. The camp was barely holding together. The ground trembled every few minutes, as if the moon itself wanted to throw them off its dying back. Naruto sat near the outer barricade, his back to a half-melted statue of the Omnisia. His eyes were dull, no longer glowing blue but a dim gray like ash after a fire. He stared at his hands, flexing them again and again, hoping for a flicker of the power that used to surge so easily. Nothing came. The silence inside him was unbearable. Kurama's voice, that constant growl of confidence and warmth, was gone. It felt like losing half of himself. Sister Agatha found him there, her armor streaked with soot. She sat down beside him without a word, the wind tugging at her veil. They watched the horizon where the sky pulsed faintly red, the mark of Varakesh's ritual devouring the forge moon from the inside. "When I was a girl," she said quietly, "I thought hell was a place below us. Now I know it's a sky that never stops bleeding." Naruto gave a humorless chuckle. "You get used to it. Kind of. No one should." He glanced sideways at her. "You still believe in your emperor after seeing all this? Belief isn't sight. It's the decision to keep walking." He looked back at his hands. "Then maybe I'm out of belief." "Then borrow mine for now," she said simply, and stood, leaving him with a faint scent of incense and oil. Inside the command shelter, Vale leaned over the holomap projected by Rise's drones. The Inquisitor's face was lit in harsh blue light. Lines of data scrolled across the display, reports of demon incursions, collapsing tectonics, atmospheric breaches. Caiestus stood opposite her, helm held under one arm, scarred features set in stone. "Varakesh has established a nexus beneath the central foundry," Vale said. "That's where he's channeling the energy he stole from our asset." "You mean Naruto," Caiestus said. Vale didn't flinch. "If he still is Naruto." That surge nearly tore the Geller field apart. The boy might be more weapon than man now. "He saved 100 lives on Lathril," Caiestus replied. "Weapons don't make choices like that." Vale gave him a long look. Idealism from a space marine. The galaxy must truly be ending. Rise's mechadendrites hissed. Interruption. Energy readings suggest the ritual will reach convergence within 24 planetary hours. After that, containment becomes mathematically impossible. Extermination of the moon will be the only recourse. Vale nodded once. "Then we end this before dawn." Naruto walked in as she said it. His steps were slow, but his eyes were sharper than before, burning faintly despite the hollowness. "If he's using Kurama's power, I'm the only one who can stop him." Vale looked him over. "You can barely stand." "I don't need to stand to fight," he said, voice low. "I just need to keep moving." For a moment no one spoke. Then Caiestus reached for his helm. "The strike team leaves in 1 hour. If he falls behind, we leave him." Naruto smirked. "You'll have to try." The descent into the foundry felt like walking into the throat of a dying god. They moved through tunnels carved from rust and bone, the walls breathing with faint pulses of light. Each step echoed with whispers, memories of workers who had once served the machines here. The deeper they went, the hotter it became. Steam hissing through vents, molten metal trickling down walls like tears. Naruto felt the pull before anyone else did, a vibration under his skin. He knew it instantly. Kurama's energy, twisted and raging. It burned in the distance like a sun behind glass. "He's close," he murmured. They entered a vast chamber where the ceiling disappeared into shadow. Giant cogs hung motionless above, and in the center stood a pillar of black stone carved with writhing runes. Around it, hundreds of cultists knelt in circles, chanting words that hurt to hear. Floating above them, bound in chains of light and shadow, was Varakesh. His eyes glowed with the crimson fire of stolen power. When he spoke, his voice carried through the chamber like a sermon. "Witness, brothers. The fox's heart burns within me. Soon the warp will know a new god, the god of change and beast." He spread his arms, and the chains cracked with energy. Kurama's echo roared within him, a twisted imitation of Naruto's oldest friend. "Guess we skip introductions," Naruto said, stepping forward. The Marines spread out, forming a firing line. Vale raised her pistol, and Agatha whispered a prayer under her breath. "Fire," Vale ordered. The first volley tore through the cultists, ripping them apart in waves of thunder. Varakesh laughed, the sound booming through the chamber as demons poured from the shadows. Bolters roared, seals flared, and Naruto dashed into the fray, summoning what fragments of chakra he could still muster. His movements were slower, clumsier, but every strike carried purpose. A clawed hand slashed toward his throat. He ducked, spun, and drove a kunai into its chest. The creature screamed, dissolving into smoke. Another lunged, and he formed a Rasengan. Small, weak, but real. The sphere tore through the demon's body in a burst of blue light. The Marines saw it and rallied around him, their chants blending with the thunder of battle. Above them, Varakesh raised a hand, and the air thickened. The ground rippled like water as the pillar split open, revealing a sphere of red energy. Kurama's chakra, swirling and screaming. Naruto felt the echo of that power call to him. Half familiar, half monstrous. It was his, but it wasn't him anymore. "Do you feel it, little hero?" Varakesh's voice rolled down from above. "Your beast loves the warp. It sings to the madness. Join it and be whole again." Naruto looked up, eyes hard. "You don't know him. And you sure as hell don't know me." He leapt, chakra flaring around his legs in a flash of blue. The world slowed, the sound of battle dimming to a heartbeat. He drove toward the pillar, slamming his palm into its surface. For a moment, the red and blue energies met, fighting for dominance. The light exploded, hurling him backward. He hit the ground hard, breath leaving his lungs. Varakesh descended slowly, robes trailing like smoke. "You cannot reclaim what I've perfected. Your power was born for chaos." Naruto forced himself to stand, blood trickling down his temple. "Power isn't what makes me," he said through clenched teeth. "It's what I do with it." He charged again, fists glowing faintly. Each strike tore pieces of Varakesh's illusions apart, but the sorcerer was faster, stronger, fed by the stolen echo. Naruto stumbled, exhausted. Varakesh caught him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "I will remake you," he hissed. "Your spirit will crown my ascension." A bolt shell smashed into Varakesh's shoulder, the impact splattering warp blood. Caiestus charged, roaring, slamming into the sorcerer like a battering ram. "Now Uzumaki," he shouted. Naruto hit the ground, coughing. He looked up, saw Vale and the Marines forcing Varakesh back, Ryza flooding the chamber with counter-sigils that sparked like blue fire. Agatha dragged the wounded to cover, her prayers rising above the noise. For a moment, unity burned brighter than fear. Naruto pressed his hands together, gathering the last fragments of chakra. He could still feel Kurama's presence, faint, calling from within the storm above. "If you can hear me," he whispered, "I'm not giving up on you. Ever." He thrust his palms outward, releasing everything he had left. A burst of light erupted, blue and gold interwoven, cutting through the red haze. The pulse struck Varakesh squarely in the chest, driving him back into the pillar. The sorcerer screamed as cracks spider-webbed across the stone. The sphere of energy above them shuddered, its form destabilizing. Vale's voice rang through the comms. "All units, fall back. The structure's collapsing." Naruto ignored her. He could see Kurama's outline flickering within the sphere, distorted and fading. "Come on," he whispered, reaching out. The light seared his hand, but he didn't stop. He felt the faintest echo of the fox's voice, a growl soft as a sigh. "You idiot. You'll burn yourself out. Not if it brings you home." The sphere burst, the shockwave throwing him clear. The ceiling caved, molten metal raining down like a storm. Marines dragged him out as the entire foundry erupted behind them, a sun of fire and screaming warp energy rising into the night. Hours later, in the ruins above, Naruto woke beneath a collapsed beam. Everything hurt. Vale crouched beside him, armor scorched, face pale. "You almost died," she said flatly. He managed a weak grin. "Almost doesn't count." "Verakesh escaped," she said. "He's moving toward the core. Whatever he's building, it's not over." Naruto looked at the dark sky where the red light still pulsed. "Then neither am I." He sat up slowly, the pain sharp but bearable. The warmth in his chest was faint, but it was there. A heartbeat that wasn't just his own. Somewhere inside him, Kurama's echo stirred. The connection wasn't gone. Not yet. He stood, leaning on the broken sword Vale handed him. The wind carried the smell of fire and ozone, and far away, the moon groaned like a beast waking from sleep. The war wasn't finished. The real fight was still coming. The forge moon didn't sleep. It breathed. Every vent, every cracked pipe exhaled steam that tasted like old blood and fire. The sky above had become a wound, red light pulsing from the ritual core deep beneath the crust. It bathed everything in a dull glow that made the ruins look alive. Naruto walked through that light alone. The air was heavy with dust and static, the ground slick with oil and ash. His steps were slow, careful, his breath uneven. Every movement sent a jolt of pain through his ribs, but pain was good. It reminded him he was still here. He could feel Kurama's faint heartbeat deep inside him, like an ember refusing to die, but it wasn't enough. The silence between those beats was louder than the thunder above. He passed the corpses of fallen cultists, some still twitching, their bodies half absorbed by the metal floor. Demons drifted in the distance like shadows with teeth, too weak to attack but too stubborn to fade. The smell of burnt ozone and blood clung to everything. Naruto's chakra flickered weakly around him, a pale echo of its former blaze. He reached a corridor that opened into a wide chasm, a bridge of broken girders spanning the void. Beneath him, molten rivers ran like veins, their light reflecting in his eyes. He stopped halfway across and looked down. "This world doesn't need me," he whispered. His voice sounded small against the wind. "They'll all keep fighting. They don't even know what hope is anymore." The bridge groaned as if answering him. Something moved at the edge of his vision. A silhouette stepped from the fog ahead, cloaked in black flame. Sasuke's face. No, not him, not really. Just a shape molded from memory and warp echo. His friend's eyes glowed red, his voice soft and cruel. "Did you really think you could save anyone here? You couldn't even save him." Naruto froze. "You're not real. Neither are you. You're a ghost wearing a smile. Look at yourself. Your power's gone, your beast's gone, and your home's gone. What's left?" Naruto tried to move, but the fog thickened, pressing in like cold water. Another voice joined the first, deeper, familiar in the worst way. Kurama's growl. But twisted. Mocking. "You failed us both, Kit. You opened the door and let them take everything. You don't belong here. You don't belong anywhere." Naruto sank to his knees, fingers digging into the metal. The air vibrated with laughter. His own voice now, warped and multiplied. "You talk about hope like it's a weapon," the illusion said. "But what do you fight for when there's no one left to believe in you?" He covered his ears, shaking his head. "Stop it." The laughter grew louder. The world around him dissolved into fire, memories flashing one after another. Konoha burning, faces fading, hands slipping from his. "Stop it," he shouted. The bridge cracked beneath him. He fell. Darkness swallowed everything. For a moment there was no sound, no breath, only the sensation of falling through endless cold. Then a hand touched his shoulder. He looked up. Sister Agatha knelt beside him in the ruins of a collapsed chamber, her expression calm but her eyes wet with ash and exhaustion. "You were screaming," she said softly. "I followed the sound." He sat up, blinking. The illusions were gone. The world was quiet again except for the hum of molten rivers below. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "It's not safe." She smiled faintly. Safe stopped meaning anything days ago. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a small brass charm, an imperial reliquary, the kind soldiers carried before battle. She pressed it into his hand. "You said once that you fight because you can't watch people suffer. That's faith, even if you don't call it that." Naruto stared at the charm. "Faith doesn't fix the world." "Neither does despair," she said. "But faith gives you somewhere to stand while you try." He clenched his fist around the charm. The edges dug into his skin, grounding him. The silence inside his chest pulsed once. Faint but alive. He looked up at her. "Vale. Caestus." "They made it out." "Most of them," she said. "Vale's gathering the survivors. She's not leaving without you." He nodded slowly. "Then let's go." The journey back to camp was long and quiet. The ground shook beneath them as Varakesh's ritual deepened, each tremor stronger than the last. Lightning arced between ruined towers, tracing veins of light across the sky. When they reached the perimeter, Marines were already fortifying what was left of the defenses. Vale stood at the command post, her armor cracked, her pistol holstered for once. When she saw Naruto, her eyes widened slightly. Not with relief, but recognition. "You're late," she said. "I got lost," he answered. "Found myself again, though." Vale studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Good. We'll need you." Varakesh is moving his forces to the moon's core. Rise's sensors show a growing singularity. He's using the stolen chakra to open a full warp rift. And if he succeeds, the moon becomes a new eye of terror. The Imperium loses this sector, maybe more. Naruto frowned. "Then we stop him. No more waiting." Vale hesitated. "You almost died last time. If you fall again, no one here can stop what's coming." He met her gaze. "Then I won't fall again." Something in his tone silenced any argument. Vale looked away first. "Prepare yourself. We march at dawn, if dawn still means anything here." When she left, Agatha lingered. "You sound sure," she said quietly. Naruto looked out over the broken skyline, the faint shimmer of energy rising from the core in the distance. "I used to think power was what made me strong. But it wasn't. It was believing I could change things. That hasn't changed." She smiled. "Then maybe the Emperor sent you after all." He laughed softly. "Or maybe he's testing us both." That night, Naruto sat alone by the dying fire, the charm Agatha had given him resting in his palm. The flames flickered, casting shadows that almost looked like tails. The wind carried faint echoes. Kurama's voice, low and tired. "You really don't know when to quit, do you?" He closed his eyes, smiling. "Took you long enough. You're stubborn, even for a human." "Good. Because we've got one last fight left." When he opened his eyes, the fire burned brighter, gold mixed with red. The warmth in his chest grew stronger, steady and real. Somewhere deep inside, the echo of the Nine Tails stirred fully for the first time since being torn away. Not whole, not yet, but alive. Outside the camp, the sky split with a flash of lightning that formed Varakesh's sigil, a circle of fire hanging above the forge moon's heart. The ground rumbled beneath them as the final act of the ritual began. Vale's orders rang through the Vox. "All units to arms, prepare for the march." Naruto rose, the charm still clutched in his hand. "Time to end this," he whispered. And for the first time since arriving in this broken universe, his chakra flared bright gold again. Soft, steady, defiant, pushing back the darkness around him. The march began under a blood-colored sky. The ground trembled with every step as the remnants of Vale's force advanced toward the heart of the forge moon. Rivers of molten metal ran beside them, glowing veins that pulsed in rhythm with the warp rift above. Each flare of light revealed shattered statues of the Omnicia, Their faces melted into screams, and machines twisted into shapes that seemed to crawl when no one was watching. Naruto led the front line beside Caestus, his chakra glowing faintly gold beneath the haze. It wasn't the blazing inferno it once was, just a steady light, alive and determined. Every flicker of energy pushed back the shadows for a few heartbeats, giving the soldiers behind him courage they didn't know they still had. The fox's echo inside him was quiet now, not words but warmth, a presence that matched his heartbeat like the echo of a drum. Behind them, Vale and Ryza moved with the strike group, their armor reflecting the crimson sky. Vale's voice cut through the vox every few minutes, calm and precise, as if she could will her soldiers to survive through discipline alone. Sister Agatha walked among the wounded at the rear, her hymns barely audible over the wind. The closer they came to the core, the louder the whispers grew. The warp storm above was fully awake now, swirling like an enormous eye. Flashes of impossible color streaked through the clouds, and shapes moved inside them, shadows that stretched across the horizon. When the first wave of Varakesh's demons appeared, they didn't crawl from the ground. They poured from the air, spilling like ink. The Marines fired in controlled bursts, bolters thundering, while Ryza activated disruption pylons that glowed blue. Naruto dashed ahead, clones splitting off to intercept the nearest beasts. Each movement left trails of light across the ruins. He weaved between the monsters, fists striking with bursts of chakra that shattered them into ash. Caestus joined him, his power sword cutting arcs through the air. "You move like fire," he said through his vox, his tone almost approving. Naruto grinned between breaths. "You're not so slow yourself, big guy." Another wave surged from the left. Caestus raised his weapon in salute before charging into them, his battle cry echoing through the metal valleys. Naruto followed, leaping over a toppled machine altar and driving a Rasengan into a demon's chest. It disintegrated, its dying scream swallowed by the storm. The fighting grew worse with every step, but Naruto didn't falter. He could feel the core ahead of them, Kurama's power, alive and furious, chained in the center of the ritual. The pull was magnetic, pulling at every fiber of his being. Vale's voice cut through the noise. "All units, converge on the Forge Citadel. Varakesh is inside." The citadel rose from the horizon like the ribcage of a god, massive and broken. A single spire of black metal pierced the clouds above, feeding the warp storm. The gate at its base was shaped like an open mouth, runes carved across its teeth. As they approached, Vale gave the order to split formation. Marines took the left flank, Ryza and her servitors the right. Naruto went straight up the center, every instinct telling him there was no turning back. Inside, the air was thick with heat and voices that weren't quite sound. The floor pulsed beneath them, veins of red light running in intricate lines that spiraled toward the core chamber. The walls were covered in faces, screaming, praying, laughing faces, frozen in the metal. Vale stopped at the threshold, her pistol raised. "This is it," she said. "No mercy, no retreat." Naruto looked at her and smiled faintly. Never needed either. They stepped through. The ritual chamber was enormous, a cathedral built for monsters. In the center hung Varakesh, suspended in a vortex of crimson light. Chains of energy ran from his body to a massive seal beneath him, where Kurama's chakra roiled like a captured star. The air shimmered with heat, the ground cracking under the pressure of the power being drawn into the warp. Varakesh opened his eyes as they entered. "So the heroes arrive," he said, his voice a chorus of 1,000 whispers. "You're late, Uzumaki. The beast sings for me now." Naruto clenched his fists. "You don't get it. That power doesn't belong to you. It's not just his, it's ours. Yours." Varakesh laughed. "You think love or friendship matter in this universe. Here, only power is real." Naruto's eyes burned gold. "Then let's see what real looks like." He ran forward, chakra flaring into a halo of light. The blast shook the chamber, cracking the floor. Varakesh raised his hand, and the chains snapped free, transforming into serpents of molten energy that lashed out. Naruto met them head-on, spinning into a Rasengan that tore one apart, then another. The third struck him square in the chest, hurling him across the floor. Vale's orders rang out. Cover him. Marines advanced, firing into the storm. Ryza activated her drones, projecting anti-warp runes that flickered against the crimson air. Agatha dragged the wounded to safety, her hymns louder now, words of defiance wrapped in faith. Naruto rose slowly, smoke curling from his armor. "You're right about one thing," he said, voice steady despite the pain. "This place only knows power. But you don't get to decide what kind of power wins." He closed his eyes. The memory of Agatha's faith, Caiestus's courage, Vale's stubborn resolve, all of it burned in his mind. He reached inward, past the silence, to the ember that still lived in his chest. "Kurama," he whispered in his heart, "if you can hear me." One last time. The response was faint, tired, but real. "Ha! Took you long enough, brat. Let's burn bright." The light erupted from him, gold laced with red, flooding the chamber in brilliance. The chains that bound Kurama's chakra snapped, one by one, their fragments dissolving into sparks. Varakesh screamed, his body splitting into countless shadows. "No. It's mine. It's—" Naruto appeared in front of him, his fist glowing like the sun. "It was never yours." The punch landed with a thunderclap that shook the moon to its core. Varakesh's form exploded into dust and light, but the energy he'd unleashed didn't vanish. It began collapsing inward, pulling the chamber into a singularity of chaos. Vale's voice echoed through the vox. "Naruto. The core's destabilizing. Get out." He looked toward her, smiling through the blaze. Not without ending this. He formed a new seal, something that was neither chakra nor machine can't, but both. The pattern spun in the air, merging with the remnants of the array they had built days before. Golden light spiraled outward, countering the implosion. The storm above began to recede, the red clouds unraveling into white fire. Agatha's hymn rose louder, joined by the Marines' battle chants, by Ryza's mechanical prayers. The sound filled the chamber like a heartbeat. Naruto stood in the center of it all, the light from his hands spreading through the citadel, through the moon, through the warp itself. The pressure built until it was almost unbearable. Varakesh's scream dissolved into static. The vortex collapsed with a blinding flash. When the light faded, Naruto stood alone at the center, surrounded by molten glass. His aura flickered but didn't die. The storm above was breaking apart, its red glow replaced by pale gold. Vale staggered to his side, her voice hoarse. "You did it." He smiled weakly. "Not me. All of us." Outside, the sky began to change. The endless red haze was pierced by faint streaks of blue, the first color Pallidus 9 had seen in 1,000 years. The soldiers watched in silence as the light spread, washing the world clean of its darkness. Naruto looked up at it, his breath unsteady. "Guess even a place like this can see dawn," he murmured. Kurama's voice answered softly in his mind, warm and proud. "Told you, brat. We always rise again." He laughed, the sound breaking the silence like sunlight breaking clouds. The Forge Moon's heart had stopped bleeding. The war wasn't over, but the darkness had lost its grip. For the first time since he'd fallen into this universe, hope felt real. The Forge Moon was dying, but it died beautifully. Flames rippled across the horizon like sunrise through smoke, molten rivers cooling into glass under the glow of a sky that was no longer red but pale gold. The warp storm above had unraveled into ribbons of light drifting away into the void, dissolving like morning mist. Where once the air was poison, now it was still, thin, trembling, uncertain, like the first breath after drowning. Naruto stood amid the ruins of the citadel, the seal still glowing faintly under his feet. His body ached, every muscle screaming, his chakra nearly empty, but he was alive. The golden shimmer around him pulsed in rhythm with the faint echo of Kurama's presence. No longer a roaring inferno, but a steady flame within him. "You did it," whispered a voice behind him. He turned to see Sister Agatha climbing over a mound of debris, her robes torn, her hands streaked with ash and blood. She looked around at the devastation. Collapsed towers, broken machines, the glassy floor still glowing from the heat, and her eyes filled with tears that refused to fall. "The warp is retreating." Naruto nodded. "He's gone. Varakesh, the ritual, all of it. But it cost everything this world had left. Agatha looked up toward the clouds where fragments of light floated like fireflies. Sometimes that's what it takes for a new beginning. Vale's voice echoed from the comms, sharp but tired. All remaining units, regroup at the extraction zone. We have minutes before the crust collapses. Naruto exhaled and started walking, his footsteps leaving faint glowing prints on the scorched metal. Every few steps the ground trembled, a reminder that the Forge Moon wouldn't last long now. The energy that had powered its factories, its temples, its corruption, was burning itself out. As they reached the outer platforms, they found Caiestus lying against a shattered column, armor cracked open, servos sparking. His blood, thick, almost metallic, pooled at his side. He was smiling. "I held the gate," he said weakly as Naruto knelt beside him. "I saw," Naruto said. "You bought us the time we needed." Caiestus chuckled, the sound fading like an echo through static. "Then it was worth the breath." Agatha tried to reach for her medkit, but he stopped her with a gauntlet hand. "No. My duty is done. The Emperor's light. You carry it now, both of you." His head tilted back, eyes staring into the fading sky, and the soft hum of his armor died away. Naruto bowed his head. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Vale's voice came again through the static. "The transports are on final approach. Move." They carried what survivors they could toward the cliffs overlooking the broken city. The air shimmered with heat, the ground splitting in lines of molten light. The Marines held the line as the Thunderhawk descended through the haze, its engines roaring like the last heartbeat of the planet. Vale was already aboard, issuing orders to her crew. When Naruto climbed the ramp, she met his eyes. For once, her face wasn't the mask of command. It was human, lined with exhaustion and something close to pride. "You kept your word," she said quietly. "You ended it." He shook his head. "We all did." Vale studied him for a moment longer. "You realize what you've done? The Imperium will call this heresy, working with something beyond the warp, defying the laws of the Mechanicus. But they'll also call it salvation. I don't know which is worse." Naruto grinned weakly. "Maybe both. Maybe that's balance." The Thunderhawk lifted, the vibration rattling through the deck as they rose above the ruins. Below them, Pallidus 9 finally began to collapse. The citadel crumbled inward, swallowed by a wave of molten glass. The seal glowed one last time, gold and red intertwined, before vanishing into the depths. From orbit, it looked like the planet had bloomed into a flower of light. For a few seconds, every sensor on the ship registered impossible readings. Purity where there had been corruption, harmony where there had been chaos. Then the glow faded, leaving behind a quiet sphere drifting through space, lifeless but free. In the silence that followed, Vale stood by the viewport, watching the last sparks fade. "Another dead world," she said. "But maybe this one died clean." Naruto joined her, leaning on the railing. His reflection glowed faintly in the glass, the same soft light that had driven back the storm. "Where I come from, we bury the old so the new can grow. Maybe that's what this was." She turned to him. "What will you do now? You could vanish, disappear before the Inquisition decides whether to thank you or burn you." He smiled. "I've never been good at disappearing. You'll need help rebuilding. Besides, I promised I'd bring hope. Can't stop now." Vale's lips twitched into something that almost resembled a smile. "Hope," she repeated. "In the Imperium, that's a dangerous word." "Yeah," he said softly. "So is ninja." Sister Agatha approached, carrying the relic charm she'd once given him. She held it out. "You kept it." He looked at the small brass token, its surface cracked but still glowing faintly with chakra and faith intertwined. "It kept me," he said, tucking it back into his belt. Ryza entered the observation deck, her mechanical limbs folding with precision. "The data we recovered from your seal arrays will redefine the boundaries of the Omnisio's grace," she said, her tone almost reverent. "Your existence is an anomaly, and a gift." Naruto chuckled. "Let's just call it teamwork." She nodded once. "Teamwork, then." Silence settled again as the ship turned away from the dying moon. The stars stretched into lines as the warp drive prepared for jump. For a moment, the only sound was the hum of engines and the faint rhythm of breath. Naruto stared out at the void. The stars here were different from the ones back home. Colder, lonelier, but they still shone. "You think they ever stop fighting out there?" he asked. Agatha shook her head. "No, but maybe now they'll remember why they started." Vale looked at him, then out at the stars. "Naruto Uzumaki," she said, the name strange on her tongue. "You are an anomaly the Ordo Malleus can't classify. A living paradox. But for now, you're one of us." He smiled faintly. "Guess that makes me an Inquisitor's problem." "For the rest of your days," she said. The ship's engines roared, and the void stretched open before them, streaked with faint gold light. As they entered the warp, Naruto closed his eyes, feeling the faint pulse of Kurama within him, steady and strong again. "You did it, brat," the fox murmured. "Didn't think you'd make it this far without me." Naruto smiled. "Told you I'd never quit." "You never do." He opened his eyes to the swirling light of the stars. Somewhere ahead, countless worlds waited. Broken, cruel, desperate. Worlds that needed someone foolish enough to believe that even in a place built on war, light could still be found. "All right," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "Time to bring some hope to this galaxy." Outside the viewport, a dying sun flared one last time as the ship disappeared into the stars, leaving behind a world redeemed by a stubborn ninja's will. And for the first time in the long, cruel age of darkness, the light did not fade.